became a part of your life. Well, if that's you on any level, stick around, because that's exactly what we're going to cover off on today. We're going to teach you the skills that you need to know and that you need to learn in order to become ruthlessly efficient with this, but ultimately so that you can have an investment plan that is just going to stick. And as always is the case, we're going to make it really, really simple, simple, practical, very, very tactical for you to be able to do. So before we get started, let me all know that you're around, because we're using something slightly different again. We're constantly testing the technology, testing the bounds of my capabilities with it as well. So if you are there, if you're logged in, please whack something in the chat box just to let me know that you can hear me. Even if it's just a g'day, hey, how you doing? Andy, no, we can't hear you, or whatever the case may be. And then we'll start cracking on. So if you're just logging in now, just drop something in the chat just to let me know that you can hear me. Let us know where you're coming in from, and then we'll start kicking on. Hey, JW, my brother from another mother, you're already up here. So we've got you in. Mate, just out of interest, which page are you coming in from? Are you coming in from the personal page, or are you coming in from the professional page, the Fenton Financial? Be curious to know where the comments are coming in from. And while you're doing that, for those of you who might be listening there, where the you might be on my personal page, it's just been a few things that I'm ironing out. So hopefully, g'day Mark, how you doing? Good to see you on the call. Looking to try and make sure that it's all on the professional page. So come on over to Fenton Financial for the future. As soon as I can figure out how to get this off, then that's what we'll do. So Mark, thank you, mate. Thanks, Jace, for letting me know. And would also be great to understand where you guys are coming in from, whether it is my personal page or not. But anyway, so as I said, we're going to cover off on, again, this Money Monday is all about the overarching, it's about the why, right? And then we're going to go into the tactical stuff on Thursday. So today, I'm just asking the question, have you ever tried to start investing, but you either fell off the wagon or you got a little bit derailed somewhere along the way? Maybe you thought about it, but it never really got implemented. Or maybe you started along that journey, but it never really became a part of your life. It never really stuck. So if that's you on any level, just give us a shout out and say, yep, that's me. I can relate, whatever the case may be. The Sunshine Coast. Well, that's beautiful. It is actually quite cold down here today. So let's get into it. And I'm going to read this quote because I don't want to get it wrong, but it's one of my favorites. And we're going to dive deep into the why in and around this, but you're going to leave here with the understanding of how to create an investment strategy and an investment plan that's going to stick. And it's going to be super, super simple, and it will be one of the most valuable things in your life if you can just master the small amount of discipline that it's going to take for you to do this. I promise you, promise you, promise you. It was Steve Jobs, who is many of our sort of mentors, or what we idolize. One of the things I loved about Steve Jobs is simplicity. And this is a quote. So here it is. It's simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple, but it's worth it in the end, because once you're there, you can move mountains. Now, when people read quotes like this, and if that's you, whack something in the chat box, just say, well, Andy, everybody who is great at something seems to make stuff simple. Right. And that's ultimately why you have professionals in your life, why you have coaches. It's to be able to break down the complexity so that you can understand it. And what I'm going to take you through is how to make this a part of your life. So it makes it, your investing is just something that you do like waking up, right? Because ultimately today, in all of these areas that we've already been through, and we're going to continue to go through on Money Monday and the tools and tactics, you sit at the center of it. You are the most important part of it. If you cannot affect you, then the ability for you to be able to inflict change is going to be extraordinarily limited. So we need to get inside this cranium of yours, and we need to move and shift a few things around a little bit. So that you can ultimately better understand what it is that you need to be doing and how it is that you need to be doing it. Hey, Alison, good to see you in here again. Starting to become a regular, and we love having you here as well. So welcome. So what am I talking about here? Because in toying around in the brain a little bit, for me, there's two types of ways that you can really make a big impact. And I'm not going to go for the first one. The first one is where you make a sort of a gregarious decision or a very, very large investment, and you just fix yourself into it. Now, that may be an investment property, right? So, but here's the thing. If you haven't worked on a few skills, then you could quite quickly get yourself into cash flow troubles. I'm not saying don't do that, but that's one way to be able to force yourself into the investing world, right? You make a big decision, you commit to it in a big way, and there is no way out, right? It's not a highly liquid market. And that's totally cool. That's one really great way. Some people stick to it because pain can be a great motivator. But what I want to do is I want to take you on the pleasure journey. And that sounded a little bit weird, didn't it? But I want to take you on the pleasure journey, right? So this stuff is something that you look forward to rather than create something that you're afraid of. Because the more that you can make this part of your life, the more that you can crack the code on this, the more that you can develop a long-term investment strategy and a long-term mindset, the greater you're going to be able to feel freedom, the greater you're going to feel of having control of your life, and ultimately a life that feels in control. So where we need to go is we need to break back down, and we need to deal with some of that psychology here and get inside this brain. So what I want to introduce you all to, and for those of you who study psychology, this is going to be right at home for you. I'm going to show you how to practically break that down and make small changes that make a massive difference. This is all about very, very minute changes that are going to make a massive difference, right? So in cognitive psychology, in pattern recognition, right, we have cognitive, right, which is cognitive is kind of knowing or acquiring knowledge through understanding or experiencing it, right? Whereas, so that's you going down and buying a property and experiencing the journey. That's cognitive, right? That's cognitive learning. You learn through doing, you learn through feeling. And then there's recognition, right? And recognition is the acknowledgement that something's out there, and you've got to try and justify or prove its validity or its existence. And that's what we're working in through here. And what I'm going to take you through right now, literally right this second, is something which I call millimeters that move mountains. All right? So what are the millimeters that move mountains? And what the hell do I mean by that? Because one of the things that I've learned over a period of time, and I was very fortunate to know a wonderful nanoscientist, Michelle Dickinson, at a point in time many years ago. We kite surfed together, good friend. And so she works in nanotechnology, which is tiny, tiny little particles, right? So we're not quite down into bosons and quarks yet, but nanotechnology, and one of the things it brings to mind is superhydrophobic coating, right? So if you look on a lily leaf, you'll see water that beads on it. A lily, or the leaf, has superhydrophobic coating. Try and say that 10 times fast. Right, so there's tiny little particles that are smaller than the water particles, which mean that the water actually beads on top of it rather than get absorbed into it. And they use this now to coat phones so that they don't die when you drop them into water, so on and so forth. So what I learned from Michelle was that the smallest things in life quite often have the most significant impacts. And the same is true of psychology, and the same is true of investing. And there's clues everywhere, right? It's not just in nanoscience, it's in business. Jim Collins, the 20-mile march, Vern Harnish, planning system, Kerwin Ray, the planning system, right? So there's these little clues, there's these little clues around everywhere. And here it is, right? So you want to access something that is sitting outside your recognition. Right. And this is why you're going to already start to feel, and those of you who've seen me present some of this before, you're going to see it in a different context. But just imagine that everything that we know, right, is inside this circle. The closer it is to the center of the circle, the more we know it. We know it instinctually. We know it like our love for our parents, our love for, our partner. We just know it. Like the back of your hand is the analogy. Right. Now, the further we get away from that center, the less familiar we are about it, until we get to the edge here, where we kind of know that exists, but we're a bit fuzzy. You know, when you go to talk about something and you're not quite sure about it, and it's a little bit fuzzy, you can't find the words to explain yourself. Now, quite often that's because you just learnt about it. Now, for many of you, investing and growth is sitting outside of here, right? And this is why they say growth exists outside your comfort zone. Well, this isn't your comfort zone. This is the edge of your cognitive periphery, right? So everything that's outside here, you don't actually, you're aware that investing happens, but you're not quite sure on how to do it. Right. So what we want to do, and this is the fundamental understanding as to why this technique works so well. Right. And if you understand the psychology behind it, you're 10 times more likely to be able to implement it and make it sustainable and make it work. Right. So if we think about it, then things that are outside of our understanding, for most of us, scare us. And it's true. You know, things that we don't understand quite often scare us. There is a small part of the population that are actually inspired to try and find these things. Base jumpers, crazy people like Steve Jobs, you know, they're in the pursuit of the stuff that they don't know. That's a great psychology to have, sometimes a damaging psychology. And sometimes it can be, you know, that your amygdala is not functioning properly and you chase these things to your detriment. But what I'm going to take you through is a very, very small, and it is quite practical and tactical, but on Thursday, I'm going to take you through how to break it down and make it work. But what we need to do is we just need to take very, very small approaches and very, very consistent approaches to investing. Because if we do this over what it ends up being a very short period of time over a lifetime, because if we have a life that starts at 0 and ends at, let's say, 100, because that's how old I'm going to live to, right? So, and our 20s are somewhere down here, right? And so now I'm 40, right? Not even halfway there. And so if we start to look at this in the course of a lifetime, and it's funny that I spoke about in a podcast with Mr. Whitten recently that I missed a year of study, so I felt like I'd failed. And that's what a lot of people feel like in finance and investing as well. You only ever fail if you never start, all right? But in the scheme of a lifetime, if you do this slowly, this compounding effect will be massive. Right. So what we want to do is we want to build a system whereby we can take millimeter steps. And as you take those millimeter steps, your understanding is going to become more and more foundational. And it's also going to become a part of your life until we're smack bang in the middle of the circle and you feel confident and you feel in control of your circumstances. So what do we need to do in order to be able to make the millimeters into mountains? Well, it's really, really, really simple. We just need to make a start. So let me give you an example of how I tackle things which I'm a little bit afraid of and that, or uncomfortable, that I don't want to do. I make it so that it adjusts my life so minimally initially that it's almost inconsequential. I make adjustments in my life that are so minimal to start with that they are almost inconsequential. Right? And I'm going to say it one more time because I want this part to stick. I make tiny, minimal adjustments in my life that are so minimal, so minute, that they make almost no impact whatsoever. There is no feeling to it. So it was not that long ago that I reread a book. I'm not sure if it's here. But going through COVID, needed new routines to keep myself pepped up, right? So read The Miracle Morning again. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell. Really? I'm going to be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. All right. Now, work late, start early. Like, I don't like mornings. Actually, I love mornings. Mornings are the most wonderful thing. But old Andy didn't necessarily like the mornings. So here's the thing. You can either do the big impact. So you just go, bang, I'm just going to make the decision to wake up at 5 o'clock every day. And that is for some people. And that takes a disproportionate amount of inertia, energy, and discipline to keep that going. What happens with a lot of people get enthusiastic, like those of you who've got enthusiastic about an investment program, and then it fell by the wayside. Like, give me some comments if this is starting to sound like you. So what we need to do is we need to make small little adjustments. So here's what I did. Every morning, I adjusted my alarm clock. Well, initially it was by 1 minute, right? So it went from 6 to 5:59. Then the next morning, 5:58, 5:57, 5:56. Then slowly the weekend came around, broke the cycle a little bit. But what I did is I put little millimeters that were almost to the body clock, almost unrecognizable. Right. And then created that momentum that over a period of time, before I knew it, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Because I'd been introducing this slow stepped kind of rhythm backwards, it felt like it was just part of my life. It felt like it was part of my DNA, right? It felt like it was coded in to this cranium over here. And then it just became a part of my life. So in the tactical section, I'm going to introduce you to some applications that you can use in order to be able to do this. But for those of you who really want to start to get involved in this, and here's the thing, depending on where you are, your millimeters are going to be different. If you're earning $1 million profit a year, your millimeter is going to be substantially more than somebody who's earning 100,000, right? It's actually more than 10 times because of generally the economy of scale effect. For some of you, it's not, because there's a consumption effect as well, right? But here's the thing. So what we want to do is, if you haven't been able to do it before, one of the most simple ways that you can do it in order to make it stick up here, to bring the fear in slowly, so that then all of a sudden you become familiar with it while it's outside in this fuzzy area, right? So the decisions are not that massive for you. Before you know it, the amounts that you'll be investing will actually start to become larger and larger and larger. And the compounding of this over a lifetime is amazing. The effect over the course of the year can be absolutely mind-blowing. But here's the thing, is by the time you get there, you're just used to the journey. It felt like there was no impact whatsoever. I talk about this with business clients all of the time, especially ones that are younger and just starting up, is that if you just take 1% and you put it aside, and here's what you can do with your income, just take 1%, put it aside, every single paycheck, 1%, put it aside, start to invest it. You will not notice it. I promise you. I promise you, you will not notice it. If you do notice it, there's other shit that you need to work on, right? Right? And it might be debt. Cool. Right? We do need to pay that down first. But here's the thing, is if your debt's being paid out at 2% and your investment's growing at 6 or 7% on a post-tax basis, you might be better off actually learning how to invest. So here's the thing. That's why when Steve Jobs said, and I'm going to quote it, simple can be harder than complex. It really can. What I've taken you through is super, super simple, and it doesn't take a lot of discipline. It just takes consistency. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple, which is what we've done. But it's worth it, because in the end, once you're there, you can move mountains. Literally, I've given you a tiny little hack. And as I've said with so many of these things, they innately are simple. We spend a lifetime overcomplicating things that are very, very fundamentally simple. And that's what these series are all about, is about how to crack the code. But I know all you are sitting there, you're going, that's really great, Andy, but I want the fucking shortcut. We'll give you the shortcut on Thursday. So there's some really cool things. I'm going to take you through them. I can't recommend any of them, but there are some ways that you can automate this stuff so that you don't even have to think about it, right? And I really want to share it with you. No, I'm going to save it until Thursday. But I'm going to take you through some really, really cool tools whereby you can just start to switch the percentages. You can just start to turn up the dial a little bit so that all of a sudden you might start to feel it. But that's good, because eventually you need to get to this period of time where you're going to pace and lead with your finances and investing. As I said, the more that you bring it inside to this cognitive recognition, the more that you bring it into the center, the more control, the greater the freedom, the greater amount of future flexibility, or what I call a green energy investing fund, which is when you deploy energy that you have put out into the ether in order to produce wealth or money. And when you redeploy that into something that can have a positive effect while you do not have to manage it, the more that you put into that pile becomes the green energy. It becomes the energy of your future, where you don't have to go out and expel energy in order to be able to receive it back. And that's ultimately where we're trying to get as a society. And this is one step that we can take you closer to becoming a green energy investor yourself. So hopefully you've enjoyed the Monday tip. If there's any questions, I'm going to hang around for a little bit. Check out the chat box and see what's going on with all y'all. You should be able to, come up here in a tick. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it's up there now. So let's just see if there's anything coming through. Any questions? Anything about the psychology? I love the psychology side of the equation. Whoop. There are so many ways that the millimeter theory can be applied to, 100%. Like Alison, it's crazy. It's just one of these things, but it's more of a, I probably got it more so from old sporting days than anything else, is that you never went out to just run 15Ks, no. And this has been one of the reawakenings that I had in the last COVID period, is from exercise, because I'd always go out and I'd always blow my shoulders up because I just couldn't help myself. I was a dumb male in many ways. Just go out there and you would work too hard and you would eventually blow it up. I say that and I've actually just tweaked something. But the 20 minutes worth of exercise every single day, the effect of that has been so much more. And you have your days, which is active stretching days, right? You got to take care of the body. But those little millimeters, all of a sudden, have far more sustainable, far more long-term effects. And here's the thing, they become coded into your DNA. And here's the thing, is that when it comes coded into your DNA, this is what we call an ancestral shift. Wow, I'm choosing to say things which are really difficult for me to say these days. And an ancestral shift is one where you break the epigenetic code, right? And here's the thing, is that finance and investing has been made extraordinarily complex for thousands of years, right? And out of a control dynamic, going back to the pharaohs, going back to the Anglo days of King Henry and the Knights of the Templar and all of those sorts of things, it was made complex to control. And that is our history. That is what comes from our ancestral link, all right? So here's the thing, is that if you manage to be able to break that link in your lifetime, it is broken forever. And the ancestors, your children, your children's children, your children's children's children, will not have those same sort of roadblocks that you might have had to face in your life. So we're doing more than just millimeters for our own life, where we're making massive impacts and moving mountains in the future. So guys, thank you so much. I see the chat box over here and on the screen. Don't forget Thursday, we're going to break this down into tactics. So I'm going to give you some tactical tools that you can go and use, so that if you're even so lazy as you go, Andy, I can't even be bothered doing this. It sounds great, but let's just figure out a way of doing it without even having to watch. I'm going to take you through that, which can do in sometimes 5 or 6 clicks of a button. So for all of you, that's going to be Thursday. I am going to take, as soon as I can figure out how to, I'm going to take it off my private page, because it's meant to be business stuff. So if you are listening on the private page and it does, and you like it, come over to the Fenton Financial page, listen to myself and Jason on Wine and Wisdom on Wealth, Wine and Wisdom on Friday. And we'll look forward to seeing you all there. Tools and tactics on Thursday, same time, same place. We'll catch you all there.